The scream pierced the Dakota Territory dawn like a blade through silk, sharp and desperate and utterly human. Jack Coltrane's boots stopped crunching through the frost-covered prairie grass as the sound echoed across the empty landscape, bouncing off the railroad tracks that stretched endlessly in both directions like a steel scar through the earth. He'd been walking this same route to the grain mill for 8 months now, ever since Anna died. Ever since the typhoid took her and left him with nothing but an empty farmhouse and memories that cut deeper than any physical wound. The December cold bit through his coat, settling in his bones, the way grief had settled in his soul. The scream came again, weaker this time, barely audible over the wind. Jack's hand moved instinctively to the Colt .45 at his hip, old habits from his sheriff days, as he scanned the horizon. Nothing moved except the tumbleweeds dancing across the frozen ground. Then he saw the blood. Dark droplets spattered the frost like crimson tears, leading from the main road toward the railroad tracks. Jack's pulse quickened as he followed the trail, his breath forming small clouds in the bitter air. The blood was fresh, still wet despite the cold. "My Jesus Christ," he whispered when he found her. A girl lay crumpled between the rails, her black hair matted with ice and blood. She couldn't have been more than 17, with delicate Asian features and a belly swollen with late pregnancy. Her white dress was torn and stained, clinging to her shivering form like a burial shroud. But it was her eyes that stopped Jack cold when they fluttered open, dark, frightened, but burning with the kind of fierce determination that came from surviving hell itself. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Please. They're coming back." Jack dropped to his knees beside her, shrugging off his coat. The girl's skin was gray-white, her lips blue with cold. Blood pooled beneath her head, where someone had struck her, and her bare feet were cut and bleeding. Fresh tire tracks in the dirt nearby told the story someone had dumped her here to die. "Easy now," Jack said, wrapping his coat around her shoulders. "I'm gonna get you help." "No." The word came out stronger than he expected. Her hand shot out and gripped his wrist with surprising strength. "No hospital, no police. They own them all." Jack stared into her eyes and saw something that made his stomach turn. Pure animal terror. This girl wasn't just hurt, she was hunted. "Who are you running from?" he asked gently. "Men who think they bought me." Her voice cracked. "Men who think they can buy anything." Jack's blood went cold. He'd seen enough in his years as sheriff to know what that meant. "What's your name?" "Sarah," she said without meeting his eyes. The lie came too quickly, too practiced. "Well, Sarah, you're safe now. Can you walk?" She struggled to sit up, one hand pressed protectively over her belly. "The baby? She's coming soon. I can feel it." Jack helped her to her feet, supporting her weight as she swayed. In the distance, almost too faint to hear, came the rumble of approaching engines. Multiple vehicles moving fast. "That's them," Sarah whispered, her face going white. "Oh God, they found me." Jack looked at the girl in his arms, barely more than a child, herself pregnant, and terrified, with nowhere left to run. He thought of Anna, of the life they'd planned together, of the badge he'd worn, and the oath he'd taken to protect the innocent. "Not if I can help it," he said. His farmhouse sat on 10 acres of wind-swept prairie, isolated enough that a man could think without the world pressing in. Jack had built it with Anna 5 years ago, back when he still believed in things like justice and happy endings. Now it felt too big, too quiet, but it was defensible. "There's a storm cellar beneath the kitchen," Jack said as they approached the house. "Hidden door under the table. If things go bad—" "They will go bad," Sarah interrupted. "They always do." Jack helped her inside, settling her on the old leather sofa near the fireplace. She flinched at every sound, her eyes constantly scanning the windows. The bruises on her arms were old, healed to yellow-green. There were needle marks on her inner arms, not from medicine, but from something else. "How long have you been running?" Jack asked, preparing hot water and gathering clean cloths. 6 months, maybe more. Time gets fuzzy when they keep you drugged. Jack's jaw clenched. Who's they? Chen Wei. He runs everything shipping gambling girls. He paid my father $2 million for me. Sarah's voice was flat empty. In his world, I'm already dead. $2 million. Jack's blood ran cold. This wasn't some local trouble. This was something that reached far beyond the Dakota territory. What did you steal from him? Sarah's hand moved to her dress to a small bulge hidden in the fabric. Information. Financial records. Enough to destroy his entire operation. She met his eyes. Enough to get anyone who helps me killed. The sound of engines grew louder. Jack moved to the window, peering through the gap in the curtains. 4 black carriages were approaching fast, their wheels throwing up clouds of dust and snow. Men in dark coats rode alongside them, their faces hard and professional. How many? Sarah asked. 8, maybe 10. Jack checked his grandfather's double-barreled shotgun, the weight familiar in his hands. All armed. You can't fight them all. Watch me. The carriages pulled up in front of the house, their occupants dismounting with military precision. Jack counted 9 men now, all armed, watching the house like wolves circling wounded prey. A tall man in an expensive coat stepped forward. He was older, maybe 50, with silver hair and the kind of face that belonged in a boardroom rather than the Dakota prairie. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Mr. Coltrane," he called out. "I know you're in there. My name is Chen Wei." Jack's blood turned to ice. They knew his name. They'd come prepared. "I'm here for the girl," Chen Wei continued. "She stole something that belongs to me. Return her, and no one needs to get hurt." Sarah grabbed Jack's arm. "He's lying. He'll kill you either way." "I know." Jack moved to the gun cabinet, withdrawing more ammunition. "Sarah, I need you to get to that cellar. Now. I won't hide while you die for me. You're about to have a baby. You don't have a choice." "Mr. Coltrane." Chen Wei's voice carried across the yard, patient and reasonable. "I understand your reluctance, but the girl is legally my property. She was purchased in good faith from her father." "People ain't property," Jack shouted back. "Not in this country." "Perhaps not in your country," Chen Wei replied. "But she is not from your country, and she has taken something very valuable from me." Jack looked at Sarah, who was breathing hard, her face twisted with pain. "What exactly did you take?" "Financial records, shipping manifests, names of everyone in his organization, politicians, judges, police chiefs, everyone he's bought." She pressed something small and hard into his palm. "This device contains enough evidence to destroy him." Jack stared at the tiny object, no bigger than a coin, but potentially worth more than gold. "Then we use it. You have 3 minutes to think about it," Chen Wei called. "Then my men come in." Sarah doubled over, suddenly gasping. "Jack, something's wrong. The baby, she's coming. Now. Now." Sarah's breathing was getting ragged. The stress, the fear, it's triggering labor. Jack helped her toward the kitchen where the hidden cellar door waited. "Can you make it down there?" "I have to." Sarah gripped his arm. "Promise me something. If they kill me, don't let them take her. Promise me." Jack looked into her eyes and saw Anna's face, saw all the promises he'd made and broken all the people he'd failed to save. "I promise." The front door exploded inward, just as Sarah disappeared into the cellar. Wood splinters flew through the air as 2 men rushed in, pistols drawn. Jack was ready. The first shot took the lead man in the shoulder, spinning him around and sending him crashing into the wall. The second man dove for cover behind the overturned table, firing blind. Jack rolled behind the sofa, quickly reloading. "Should have knocked," Jack muttered, rising to fire again. The second man's shot went wide, shattering the window behind Jack's head. Jack's return shot didn't miss. The man's scream was cut short as buckshot found its mark. Johnson Martinez. Chen Wei's voice carried from outside. Report. Silence from inside the house. From the cellar came a muffled cry of pain. Sarah was trying to stay quiet, but labor didn't care about gunfights or life-and-death situations. The baby was coming whether the world was ready or not. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Chen Wei called. The girl is going to die in there. She needs medical attention. She needs to be free, Jack replied. Something you wouldn't understand. Glass crashed somewhere in the house, another window breaking. They were probing his defenses, testing his resolve. Jack heard movement on the roof boots against wood. They were trying to come down the chimney. He grabbed a poker from the fireplace and waited. When the first boot appeared, he swung hard. The man's scream echoed down the flue as he fell back onto the roof. Persistent bastards. Jack muttered, checking his ammunition. 15 shells left and 7 men to account for. The mathematics weren't encouraging. The back door splintered as another man forced his way in. Jack spun, firing from the hip. The shot went wide, but it drove the intruder back into the yard. More glass shattered, and they were systematically destroying the house, forcing him to divide his attention. Another contraction cry from the cellar, longer this time. Sarah was fighting 2 battles at once, bringing life into the world, while death circled the house like vultures. I'm getting tired of this. Chen Wei's voice was losing its patience. Burn it down. Jack's blood went cold. If they torched the house, Sarah and the baby would die in that cellar. There'd be no escape, no way out. He had to end this. Now. A side window exploded inward as a man dove through it, rolling across the floor with practiced precision. Jack's shot caught him in the leg, but the man kept moving, firing as he scrambled for cover. Pain lanced through Jack's left arm as a bullet found its mark. He gritted his teeth, returning fire. The man's second shot went wide, punching through the wall near the kitchen door. 3 down, 6 to go. Thompson checked the back. Williams take the east side. Chen Wei's voice was calm, professional. No more games. Jack stumbled toward the kitchen, where Sarah's labored breathing echoed from below. The hidden door was concealed beneath a heavy oak table, invisible unless you knew where to look. Anna had insisted on the storm cellar when they built the house. Dakota territory weather could turn deadly in minutes. Sarah, he whispered through the floorboards. How are you doing? The baby's coming, she gasped. Jack, I can't stop it. Another window shattered the bedroom this time. Smoke began seeping under the front door. They were making good on their threat to burn the house down. Damn it, Jack muttered, grabbing more shells. The smoke was getting thicker, making it hard to breathe. Soon they'd have to choose between burning alive or facing Chen Wei's men in the open. A shadow moved past the broken window. Jack fired, and the shadow jerked back with a cry of pain. Not dead, but wounded. 4 down, 5 to go. You're bleeding out in there, Chen Wei called. I can smell it. Surrender now and I'll make it quick. Much obliged, Jack replied, reloading, but I'll pass. From the cellar came a sound that made his heart stop. Sarah screaming. Not from labor pains, but from terror. Someone had found another way in. Jack yanked aside the table, revealing the cellar entrance. The door was open, and he could hear struggling below. A man's voice, harsh and commanding. Found you, little bird. Jack didn't hesitate. He dropped through the opening, landing hard on the earthen floor. The cellar was dark, lit only by weak light from above. Sarah was pressed against the far wall, her dress torn, blood between her legs. A bearded man in a dark coat stood over her, pistol raised. Drop it! Jack set his shotgun, aimed at the man's back. The man turned, grinning. You're too late, Sheriff. Girl's gonna die either way. Baby too, from the look of it. Maybe, Jack said. But you first. The man's grin faded. He started to turn his weapon toward Jack, but the shotgun spoke first. In the confined space, the sound was deafening. The man crumpled his pistol, clattering across the floor. "Jesus," Sarah whispered. "Jack the baby." Jack dropped beside her, his wound throbbing. Sarah was in full labor now, her body racked with contractions. Blood soaked her dress, and her face was gray with exhaustion and pain. "It's okay," Jack said, though he had no idea if it was. "We're going to get through this." Above them, footsteps pounded across the kitchen floor. Chen Wei's remaining men had found the cellar entrance. "Down here," a voice shouted. "They're in the cellar. Promise me." Sarah gasped, gripping Jack's hand with desperate strength. "If I die, don't let them take her." Jack looked into her eyes and saw Anna's face, saw all the promises he'd made and broken all the people he'd failed to save. "I promise." The cellar door creaked open and footsteps descended, but these weren't the heavy boots of Chen Wei's killers. These were lighter, hesitant. A young man appeared in the smoky gloom, his face twisted with uncertainty and fear. Sarah's gasp was barely audible. "Danny," the man froze, his pistol wavering. He was maybe 22, with Sarah's delicate features and the same dark eyes. But where hers held fierce determination, his showed only confusion and growing horror. "Sarah," his voice cracked. What did they do to you?" "Danny." Sarah struggled to sit up, still gripping Jack's hand. "You're with them. You're working for Chen Wei." Danny's gun hand shook. "Dad said... He said you were being taken care of. That Chen Wei would give you a good life, a respectable marriage." "A good life." Sarah's voice rose bitter and raw. "Look at me, Danny. Really look at me." Jack studied the newcomer, reading the body language, the trembling hands, the way the boy kept staring at his sister, as if seeing her for the first time. This wasn't one of Chen Wei's professional killers. This was family. Chen Wei paid Dad $2 million. Danny continued desperately. "Dad said it was an arranged marriage like the old country. You'd be respected, honored." "Honored?" Sarah's laugh was hollow, broken. "They kept me locked in a room for 6 months. They drugged me, Danny. They used me until I got pregnant, then planned to sell the baby." She struggled to breathe through another contraction. "I was merchandise." Danny's face went white. The gun slipped from his nerveless fingers, clattering on the earthen floor. No, that's not." "Dad said, Dad sold me." Sarah said, her voice flat with exhaustion. "And you helped deliver the goods." "I visited you once," Danny whispered. 3 months ago, in that big house. You seemed okay. Quiet, but okay." "I was drugged, Danny. They gave me something to make me compliant whenever anyone came to see me." Sarah's breathing was getting worse. "What did you think when you saw the bars on the windows, the locks on the doors?" Dad said. "He said it was for your protection, that the neighborhood wasn't safe." "And you believed him?" Danny stared at his sister, at the blood between her legs, at the bruises on her arms. "I wanted to believe him. It was easier than thinking." "Than thinking what?" "Than thinking our father was a monster." Above them, Chen Wei's voice carried down through the opening. "Danny, what's the delay? Bring them up." Danny looked up at the cellar entrance, then back at his sister. Jack could see the moment when the boy's world shattered, when everything he'd believed about his family and his choices crumbled into dust. "They killed David," Sarah whispered. "My boyfriend, the baby's father. They shot him in the head when he tried to help me escape." "David's dead." Danny's voice was barely a whisper. "You gave them the information they needed to find me." Sarah continued. "You helped them track me down. You helped them hunt your own niece." Danny stared at Sarah, then at Jack, then at the blood spreading across the cellar floor. "I didn't know. Sarah, I swear I didn't know. But you suspected," Jack said quietly. "Didn't you?" Danny's silence was answer enough. Danny. Chen Wei's voice was sharp with impatience. Now, I can't, Danny said, tears streaming down his face. I won't. It's too late for that. Sarah gasped as another contraction hit. You already did. No. Danny picked up his fallen pistol, but instead of aiming it at Sarah or Jack, he turned toward the cellar entrance. They're gone, he shouted up. The explosion killed them. What? Chen Wei's voice was sharp with disbelief. The smoke, the fire, they couldn't get out. They're dead. Both of them. Jack exchanged a look with Sarah. The boy was lying, buying them time. But why? What had changed? Bring me proof, Chen Wei demanded. Danny looked at Jack, then at his sister. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I thought I was helping. Danny, Sarah said softly. It's not too late. You can still make this right. How do I make any of this right? By helping us stop him, Jack said. By making sure what happened to Sarah doesn't happen to anyone else. Above them, Chen Wei's voice was growing impatient. Danny, proof now. Danny looked at the blood on the floor, at the debris from the smoke. I'll figure something out. But you need to know Chen Wei won't give up, ever. He's got too much invested. Then we don't give him a choice, Jack said. Sarah doubled over with another contraction, stronger this time. The baby, she's coming now. Now, Danny stared at his sister in horror. Now. Sarah's voice was tight with pain. Jack, I need you to help me. Jack had delivered foals and calves, but never a human baby. Still, life was life. What do you need me to do? Just be ready to catch her. Above them, footsteps moved across the kitchen floor. Chen Wei was getting impatient, and patience wasn't something he was known for. Not Danny. Jack said quietly. How many rounds you got? So Danny replied, checking his pistol. Then we better make them count. Sarah's breathing was coming in short gasps now. Danny, listen to me. In my dress sewn into the hem, there's a storage device. It contains everything: financial records, shipping manifests, names of everyone in Chen Wei's organization. Danny's eyes widened. That's what he's really after. If anything happens to me, Sarah continued, get that device to the authorities. The real authorities, not the ones on his payroll. Nothing's going to happen to you, Jack said firmly. It might, Sarah said honestly. But if it does, you protect my daughter, both of you. Danny looked at his sister, then at Jack. What's her name? The baby? Hope, Sarah said softly. Her name is Hope. Hope, Danny repeated. I like that. With a final desperate push, Sarah brought new life into the world. The baby slid into Jack's waiting hands, tiny, slick with blood, but alive. So alive. She opened her mouth and let out a cry that seemed to fill the entire cellar with defiance. She's beautiful, Danny whispered, staring at his niece. She's perfect, Jack agreed, wrapping the baby in his shirt. Above them, Chen Wei's voice carried a new edge. Danny, if you don't bring them up in 10 seconds, I'm coming down myself. Danny looked at the pistol in his hand, then at his sister and niece. I won't let him hurt you anymore. I know, Sarah said, her voice weak but steady. I know. The footsteps above grew louder. Chen Wei was done waiting. Danny, Jack said. Time to choose. Danny nodded, tears still streaming down his face. I already did. Chen Wei's polished boots appeared at the top of the cellar steps, followed by the rest of him. The crime boss looked immaculate, despite the chaos above his silver hair, perfectly styled his expensive suit, unmarked by smoke or blood. Well, well, Chen Wei said, his voice silk over steel. The whole family together at last. He held an ornate pistol with casual confidence, the kind of weapon that belonged in a collector's case rather than a gunfight. But Jack could see the competence in the way Chen Wei held it, the steady hands and calculating eyes. Hello, father. Chen Wei continued, though he wasn't looking at Danny. Behind him, another figure descended the steps, an older Chinese man with Sarah's eyes and Danny's jawline. Danny's voice was barely a whisper. I told you to bring her back. Their father said, his voice cold with disapproval. I told you this was business. Business. Danny stared at the man who'd raised him. She's your daughter. She's inventory, their father replied. Expensive inventory that you've allowed to be damaged. Jack felt Sarah's hand squeeze his arm. She was staring at their father with a mixture of hatred and heartbreak that cut deeper than any physical wound. You watched, she said quietly. Chen Wei told me. You watched them hurt me. I watched you learn discipline, their father said. Something you never had as a child. You sold your own daughter. I sold dead weight. You had no prospects, no skills, no value to this family. Chen Wei offered to make you useful. Danny raised his pistol, his hands shaking. You monster, you sold your own blood. I sold a burden, their father said dismissively. And now you're going to fix your mistake. No, Danny said. I'm going to fix yours. He fired 3 shots in rapid succession. The first 2 caught their father in the chest, sending him crashing backward into the cellar wall. The third went wide as Chen Wei's return fire caught Danny in the shoulder. You stupid boy. Chen Wei said, his voice still calm. You could have been part of something great. Instead, you chose sentiment over success. Danny fell to his knees, blood spreading across his shirt. But he was still holding the pistol, still fighting. For Danny, Sarah tried to reach for her brother, but she was too weak from the birth. Jack stood slowly, the baby still in his arms. Let them go, Chen Wei. You've got what you came for. Do I? Chen Wei's eyes never left the infant. I paid for the woman. I suppose I paid for the child as well. The child is innocent. The child is my property, as is the woman, as is the information she stole from me. I already sent it, Sarah said from the floor, to the FBI, to the newspapers, to everyone who matters. Chen Wei's smile was cold. No, you didn't. You've been running for 6 months, hiding, surviving. You haven't had time to contact anyone. You're right, Sarah said. I haven't. Then the device is still in your dress, still within my reach. The device is in my dress. Sarah agreed. But it's already too late. Chen Wei's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I mean, you're not the only one who knows about technology. Sarah said. The device has been broadcasting this entire time. Every word you've said, every confession, every admission of guilt, it's all been recorded and transmitted. That's impossible. Is it your own men brought radios, didn't they? Communication equipment? All it takes is the right frequency, the right signal boost. Sarah's smile was weak but triumphant. The FBI has been listening to everything. Chen Wei's composure cracked for the first time. You're lying. You might check your radio, see if you can raise your men outside. Chen Wei pulled out a small communication device, speaking rapidly in Chinese. Static answered him. He tried again, his voice more urgent. More static. They're gone, Sarah said. Your men, your backup, your escape plan, all of it. The FBI surrounded this place an hour ago. No, Chen Wei said, but Jack could see the doubt in his eyes. Yes, Sarah said. You see, I didn't steal your information randomly. I stole it because I was working with them. I've been feeding them intelligence for months. Chen Wei's face went white. You're FBI. I'm a victim who got tired of being a victim. Sarah replied. The FBI found me after David was killed. They offered me a deal, helped them bring down your organization, and they'd protect me. Then why run, why hide? Because I had to make you come to me. I had to make you confident, careless. I had to make you reveal everything in your own words. Jack stared at Sarah, processing this new information. The scared girl he'd found on the railroad tracks had been playing a deeper game than he'd realized. You used me, he said quietly. I used your kindness. Sarah corrected. And your courage. Without you, none of this would have worked. You used us all, Danny said from the floor, his voice weak but accusing. I used the situation, Sarah said. I used Chen Wei's arrogance, Dad's greed, your guilt. I used everything I had to stop them. Chen Wei raised his pistol, his hand steady despite the revelations. It doesn't matter. You're still going to die. All of you. No, a new voice said from the cellar entrance. They're not. Federal agents poured down the steps, weapons drawn. Chen Wei spun toward them, firing wildly. Jack dove to protect Sarah and the baby as gunfire erupted in the confined space. When the smoke cleared, Chen Wei lay dead on the earthen floor, his expensive suit finely stained with blood. Their father was dead too, his final expression one of shock and betrayal. Sarah Chen, one of the agents said, holstering his weapon. Good work. We got everything we needed. Jack stared at Sarah. Your real name is Chen. Sarah Chen, she confirmed. FBI consultant. I've been undercover for 8 months gathering evidence against Chen Wei's organization. And Danny, what happens to him? Danny cooperated, the agent said. He'll testify against the remaining members of the organization. In exchange, he gets immunity and protection. Danny looked at his sister, pain and guilt warring in his eyes. I'm sorry, Sarah. For everything. I know, Sarah said gently. And I forgive you. How can you forgive me? I helped them hurt you. Because you chose to help me in the end. Because you chose to be my brother when it mattered most. Jack looked at the baby in his arms, at Sarah on the floor, at the federal agents securing the scene. So what now? And now we clean up the mess, the lead agent said. Chen Wei's organization is finished. We have enough evidence to convict everyone involved from street level to the highest levels of government. And Sarah, the baby? Safe, Sarah said, finally safe. 6 months later, the trials were over. Chen Wei's trafficking empire had been dismantled, its members scattered to prisons across the country. The evidence Sarah had gathered led to the conviction of dozens of corrupt officials from local police to federal judges. Jack stood on the porch of Sarah's new house in Colorado, watching her hang laundry on the line. Hope was crawling now, a chubby, happy baby who smiled at everything and everyone. The sound of her laughter had become the soundtrack of their new life. Any word from Danny? Sarah asked, joining him on the porch. He's doing well, Jack said. The Witness Protection Program has him set up in Oregon. He's working with a logging company, learning an honest trade. Good. He deserves a fresh start. We all do. Sarah looked at Jack, her expression thoughtful. I never thanked you properly. For what you did, for what you risked. You don't need to thank me. I did what anyone would have done. No, Sarah said firmly. You did what a good man would have done. There's a difference. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Hope play in the grass. The baby was everything Sarah had dreamed of during those dark months, healthy, happy, loved. Jack, Sarah said quietly, I need to tell you something. What is it? I'm pregnant again. Jack stared at her, his mind processing the words. Are you sure? I'm sure. About 3 months along. She touched her stomach, her face glowing with quiet joy. I wanted to wait until I was certain before telling you. How do you feel about it? Terrified, Sarah admitted. But happy. Is that strange? Not strange at all, Jack said, pulling her into his arms. Anna always wanted children. She would have loved Hope. She would have loved you too, Sarah said. The man you've become. Jack held her close, feeling the warmth of her body against his. They'd never spoken of love, never defined what they were to each other. But love was what it was not. Not the desperate, passionate love of youth, but the deep, steady love of two people who'd survived hell together. What should we name this one? Jack asked. If it's a boy, I was thinking Daniel. after Danny. And if it's a girl? Sarah smiled. Anna, after the woman who taught you how to protect the people you love. Jack felt tears on his cheeks, the first he'd shed since Anna's death. But these weren't tears of grief. They were tears of gratitude, of possibility of a future that stretched out before them like a promise. I love you, he said, the words coming easily now. I love you too, Sarah replied. Hope crawled over to them, pulling herself up on Jack's legs. He lifted her into his arms, feeling her tiny hands grip his shirt. She looked at him with trust and love that reminded him why life was worth fighting for. Hope said, her vocabulary expanding daily. That's right, sweetheart. Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. Papa's here. Inside the house, the telephone rang. Sarah went to answer it, leaving Jack alone with Hope. The baby was getting sleepy, her eyelids heavy. Jack rocked her, gently humming a lullaby Anna used to sing. Jack. Sarah's voice called from inside, excited. You need to hear this. Jack carried Hope inside, where Sarah was holding the telephone with shaking hands. It's Agent Morrison, Sarah said. From the FBI. He says there's been a development. Jack took the phone. Morrison, what's going on? Jack, you're not going to believe this. We've been tracking down Chen Wei's financial assets, and we found something. Hidden accounts, shell companies, real estate holdings, the whole organization was worth over $200 million. What happens to all that money? Victims' compensation. The courts are awarding it to the people Chen Wei hurt. Sarah and Hope are getting a substantial settlement, enough to ensure they never have to worry about money again. Jack looked at Sarah, who was staring at him with wide eyes. How much? $5 million, Morrison said. Plus, the foundation they're setting up wants Sarah to head it up, to help other trafficking victims. Sarah, Jack said, covering the phone, did you hear that? I heard. Sarah said, her voice barely a whisper. $5 million, a foundation. There's more, Morrison continued. The Chinese government has been in touch. They want to honor Sarah for her courage in exposing the trafficking ring. They're offering her full citizenship restoration and a formal apology. Jack hung up the phone and turned to Sarah. What do you think? I think, Sarah said, looking at Hope sleeping in Jack's arms, that sometimes the good guys really do win. It's not over, Jack said. There will be other Chen Wei's, other organizations. Then we'll be ready for them, Sarah replied. Together? Together, Jack agreed. I like the sound of that. The foundation opened a year later, housed in a modern building in Denver. Sarah worked there every day, using her experience to help other victims of trafficking. Jack ran security, his law enforcement background proving invaluable in protecting the women and children who sought refuge there. Danny was released from witness protection after testifying in the final trials. He came to work for the foundation too, his guilt transformed into determination to help others avoid the mistakes he'd made. Hope grew up surrounded by love and purpose, her first steps taken in the foundation's Children's Center. She would grow up knowing that her life had meaning, that her very existence was a victory against evil. On Hope's second birthday, Jack and Sarah were married in a small ceremony at the foundation. Danny walked Sarah down the aisle, tears streaming down his face. Hope was the flower girl, toddling ahead of them and dropping petals everywhere but where they were supposed to go. The small congregation laughed, and even the minister smiled as the determined little girl made her way down the aisle with fierce concentration. As Jack and Sarah exchanged vows, Hope clapped her hands and shouted, "Papa, Mama." Her voice echoed through the chapel, a sound of pure joy that brought tears to everyone's eyes. This was what victory looked like, not the absence of struggle, but the presence of love, triumphant over hatred. Their son was born 9 months later, a healthy boy they named Daniel Jack Coltrane. He had Sarah's eyes and Jack's stubborn chin, and from the moment he drew breath, he was surrounded by the same protective love that had saved his sister. The foundation grew rapidly, helping hundreds of trafficking victims each year. Sarah became a sought-after speaker, traveling across the country to share her story and advocate for stronger anti-trafficking laws. Her testimony before Congress led to the passage of the Chenway Act, which provided unprecedented resources for victim services and law enforcement cooperation. Jack stayed closer to home, managing the foundation's day-to-day operations and being a father to their growing family. He'd found his calling again, not as a sheriff wearing a badge, but as a protector of the innocent. The mission was the same, but the scope was broader, the impact deeper. Danny never married, dedicating his life entirely to the foundation's work. He became Sarah's most trusted lieutenant, using his intimate knowledge of trafficking operations to help law enforcement identify and shut down other criminal enterprises. His guilt had been transformed into an unstoppable drive to help others to make amends for the harm he'd unknowingly caused. "I can't undo what I did," Danny said one evening as they sat on the porch of Sarah and Jack's house. "But I can make sure it doesn't happen to anyone else. You've already done more than enough." Sarah replied, watching Hope and Daniel play in the yard. "You saved us when it mattered most." "We saved each other," Danny corrected. "All of us." The siblings had found their way back to each other, their bond stronger now than it had ever been. They'd been tested by fire and emerged not just as survivors, but as warriors in the fight against human trafficking. On quiet evenings, Jack would sit on the porch and think about the journey that had brought them here. He thought about Anna, about the life they'd planned together, about the man he'd been before that cold Dakota morning when he'd found a dying girl on the railroad tracks. Anna would have been proud, he knew. She would have loved Sarah, loved the children, loved the man he'd become. The grief would always be there, but it was tempered now by gratitude and purpose. He'd learned that love didn't end with death. It transformed, finding new expressions in unexpected places. Sometimes late at night, Jack would check on the children before bed. Hope slept with her thumb in her mouth, her dark hair spread across the pillow like silk. Daniel snored softly, one tiny fist gripping his blanket with determined strength. They were safe-loved, protected by more than just their parents. They were protected by an entire community of people who understood the preciousness of innocence. The data device that had started it all was now displayed in a place of honor at the foundation, a small, unremarkable piece of technology that had brought down an empire. Visitors often asked about it, unable to believe that something so small could have such enormous impact. "It's not about the size," Sarah would tell them. "It's about the courage to use it." 5 years after that violent night in the Dakota Territory, Sarah received an unexpected visitor. A young woman, maybe 19, with haunted eyes and a small child clinging to her hand. She'd traveled from California following rumors of a place where trafficking victims could find real help. "I heard about you," the woman said, her voice barely a whisper. "I heard you got out, that you fought back." "I did," Sarah said gently. "And so can you." The woman's story was heartbreakingly familiar. Sold by her own family, used and abused, finally escaped with her daughter. She had nothing but the clothes on her back and the desperate hope that somewhere someone would help her. "What's your name?" Sarah asked. "Maria," the woman replied. "And this is Sophia." Sarah knelt down to the little girl's level. Sophia was maybe 3, with enormous dark eyes and a thumb permanently attached to her mouth. She'd seen too much for someone so young. "Hi, Sophia," Sarah said softly. "Would you like to see our playroom? We have lots of toys." Sophia nodded shyly, and Sarah felt her heart break all over again. This was why they did the work, for the Sophias of the world, for the children who deserved better than the hand they'd been dealt. As Maria and Sophia were settled into the Foundation's temporary housing, Sarah found herself remembering her own first night of freedom. The terror, the uncertainty, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, she'd found safety at last. Another one saved. Jack said that evening as they watched Hope and Daniel play with their new friend Sophia in the yard. Another family restored. Sarah corrected. Maria's not just a victim anymore. She's a survivor. And Sophia gets to grow up free. Like Hope. Like Hope. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the children play. The sun was setting over the Colorado mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. It was peaceful, perfect, the kind of moment that made all the struggle worthwhile. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't found me that morning?" Sarah asked. Jack considered the question. "I try not to think about it. But sometimes, yes. I wonder." "I would have died," Sarah said matter-of-factly. "Hope would have died. Chen Wei would still be operating. Danny would still be living a lie. None of this." She gestured at the children. The house, the life they'd built, would exist. "But I did find you," Jack said. "And we're here." "We're here," Sarah agreed, "all of us." Inside the house, the telephone rang. Sarah went to answer it, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts. The call was from Danny, reporting on a successful raid that had freed 23 women and children from a trafficking ring in Nevada. The Foundation's intelligence had been crucial in locating the victims. 23 more, Sarah said when she returned. Danny says the youngest was only 14. Where will they go? Some will go home to their families. Others will need new identities, new lives. A few will probably end up working with us, helping other survivors. The cycle continues, Jack observed. The good cycle, Sarah corrected. The cycle of healing, of hope, of people choosing to help instead of harm. As if summoned by their conversation, Hope ran over and climbed into Jack's lap. She was 5 now, old enough to understand that her family was different, that they helped people who were hurt and scared. "Papa," she said, her voice serious. "Mrs. Sarah says there are bad people who hurt children." "There are," Jack said carefully. "But there are also good people who protect children, like Mama and Uncle Danny and all the people who work at the Foundation. And you," Hope said with absolute certainty. "You protect children too." "I try," Jack said, hugging her close. "We all try. When I grow up, I want to help too," Hope announced. "I want to protect children like you do." Jack felt tears prick his eyes. "I'm sure you will, sweetheart. I'm sure you will." As the evening deepened, the family gathered around the dinner table. Sarah said grace, thanking God for their food, their safety, their ability to help others. Daniel babbled happily in his high chair, while Hope told elaborate stories about her day at school. It was an ordinary evening in an extraordinary life. They were no longer the desperate people who'd huddled in a storm cellar while bullets flew overhead. They were a family bound together by love and shared purpose. After dinner, as Jack tucked Hope into bed, she asked him a question that caught him off guard. "Papa, do you miss your first wife?" Jack sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. "I do, sweetheart. I miss her very much. But missing someone doesn't mean you can't love someone else, like how I love both you and Mama. Exactly like that. Love isn't something you run out of. The more you give away, the more you have." Hope nodded solemnly, as if this made perfect sense. "I think your first wife would be happy that you saved us." "I think she would too." Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. "I think she would be very proud. Of all of us. Of all of us." Hope smiled and closed her eyes, secure in the knowledge that she was loved and protected. Jack kissed her forehead and turned off the light, leaving her to dream of a world where all children were safe. In the hallway, he found Sarah nursing Daniel, her face peaceful in the dim light. She looked up at him and smiled, and Jack was struck again by how beautiful she was, not just physically, but spiritually. She'd taken unimaginable trauma and transformed it into compassion, turned her pain into purpose. "What are you thinking about?" she asked softly. Just all of it. How we got here, what we've built, what we're building. Any regrets? Jack considered the question seriously. No, not anymore. Every choice, every moment of pain, every moment of joy, it all led us here. To this family, to this work, to this life. Even the bad parts. Especially the bad parts. Without them, we never would have found each other. Never would have found our purpose. Sarah nodded, understanding completely. I used to hate what happened to me. The trafficking, the abuse, the fear. But now, I don't know. I can't hate something that led me to hope, to you, to the work we do. It's not that the pain was worth it, Jack said. It's that we made something worthwhile out of the pain. Exactly. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of their household settling into sleep. Outside, the Colorado night was clear and cold, filled with stars that seemed to stretch on forever. Sarah, Jack said eventually, I love you. Not just because of what we've been through, but because of who you are. Your strength, your compassion, your refusal to let evil win. I love you too, Sarah replied. For seeing me as more than just a victim, for giving me a chance to be a mother, a wife, a person worth loving. You were always worth loving, Jack said. Some people just couldn't see it. But you could. Anna taught me how to see clearly. She taught me that love isn't about what someone can do for you. It's about what you can do for each other. Sarah reached out and took his hand. Then let's keep doing for each other. For as long as we can. For as long as we can, Jack agreed. 10 years later, the Sarah Chen Foundation had helped over 1,000 trafficking victims rebuild their lives. The organization had expanded to include offices in 12 states with satellite programs in 6 countries. Sarah had testified before the United Nations, her story helping to shape international anti-trafficking policy. Hope was 15 now, a straight-A student who volunteered at the foundation every weekend. She'd inherited her mother's compassion and her father's determination, along with a fierce protective instinct that made her a natural advocate for the vulnerable. Daniel was 10, a quiet boy who loved books and building things with his hands. He'd designed and built a playground for the Foundation's Children's Center, his first contribution to the family mission. Danny had finally found love, marrying a fellow survivor named Elena, who worked as a counselor at the Foundation. They had adopted 2 children siblings who'd been rescued from a trafficking ring in Mexico. The extended family gathered every Sunday for dinner, a tradition that had grown to include not just blood relatives, but the chosen family of survivors' supporters and advocates who'd become part of their lives. On one such Sunday, as they sat around the expanded dining room table, Hope raised her glass of milk in a toast. To second chances. She said, her voice strong and clear. To second chances, everyone echoed. And to the people who give them. Danny added, looking at Jack and Sarah with gratitude that had only deepened over the years. To the people who take them. Sarah replied, looking around the table at all the faces, some scarred, some healed, all determined to make the world better. To family, Jack said simply. However we find it. To family, they all agreed. As the evening wound down and the extended family dispersed to their own homes, Jack and Sarah sat on their porch swing, watching the stars emerge one by one in the darkening sky. Do you think we made a difference? Sarah asked. I think we made the difference we could, Jack replied. And that's enough. Is it though? There are still traffickers out there. Still children being sold, still families being destroyed. There are, Jack agreed. But there are also 1,000 people who are free because of our work. 1,000 families that have been reunited or created. 1,000 children who will grow up safe. Like Hope and Daniel. Like Hope and Daniel. Sarah leaned against Jack's shoulder, feeling the solid warmth of him. I used to think rescue was about being saved. Now I think it's about learning to save others. Maybe that's what healing really is. Jack said. Not forgetting the pain, but transforming it into something that helps others heal. I love you, Jack Coltrane. I love you too, Sarah Chen Coltrane. They sat in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the night. Inside, their children slept peacefully secure in the knowledge that they were loved and protected. Around the world, other families were fighting the same battles they'd fought, facing the same darkness they'd faced. But also around the world, there were people working to help them. People who'd been inspired by their story, who decided to make a difference in their own communities. The ripple effects of their survival continued to spread, touching lives they'd never know about. What do you think Anna would say about all this? Sarah asked. Jack considered the question. I think she'd say we honored her memory by choosing love over hatred, hope over despair. I think she'd be proud of the family we've built, the work we've done. And I think she'd say we're not done yet. No, Jack agreed. We're not done yet. The next morning brought news of another successful raid, this one in Houston. 15 women and children freed, their traffickers arrested. The Foundation's intelligence network had been crucial in locating the victims and coordinating the rescue. That's over 1,100 now, Sarah said, updating their records. 1,112 people who are free because of this work. 1,112 victories, Jack corrected. 1,112 reasons to keep going. Hope appeared in the doorway, backpack slung over her shoulder, ready for school. Are we still going to the memorial service this afternoon? We are, Sarah said. Uncle Danny's picking us up at 3. Every year, on the anniversary of that violent night in the Dakota Territory, the family gathered at Anna's grave. They'd moved her remains to a beautiful cemetery in Colorado, where wildflowers grew year-round and the mountains provided a stunning backdrop. They didn't come to mourn, they came to celebrate. To remember the woman whose love had taught Jack how to love again. To honor the sacrifice that had made their family possible. This year, as they stood around Anna's headstone, Jack read from a letter Hope had written for her English class. I never met Anna Coltrane, but I know she saved my life. She taught my papa how to love, how to protect, how to be the kind of man who would risk everything for strangers. Because of her love, he was able to save my mama, my uncle, and me. Because of her love, we became a family. Because of her love, we learned to save others. I think love is like that. It doesn't die. It just finds new ways to grow. There wasn't a dry eye in the group. Even Daniel, usually stoic for his age, was crying openly. She would have loved you all so much. Jack said, his voice thick with emotion. She would have been so proud of what we've built together. She is proud, Sarah said with quiet certainty. Wherever she is, she's proud. They stood in silence for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. Then Hope stepped forward and placed a bouquet of wildflowers on the grave. Thank you, Anna, she said simply, for teaching Papa how to love us. As they walked back to the car, Danny fell into step beside Jack. Do you think it's enough? Everything we've done, all the people we've helped, do you think it's enough? Jack looked at his brother-in-law, this man who'd found redemption in service, who transformed his guilt into an unstoppable force for good. I think it's everything we could do. And sometimes that's enough. But not always. No, Jack admitted. Not always. But we keep trying anyway. Why? Jack thought about the question as they drove home through the Colorado mountains. Why did they keep fighting a war that seemed unwinnable? Why did they keep rescuing people when there were always more to rescue? Because hope is contagious, he said finally. Every person we save goes on to save others. Every family we reunite goes on to protect other families. Every child we rescue grows up to rescue other children. Like Hope wants to do. Like Hope wants to do. That evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Sarah made an announcement that surprised everyone. I've been asked to head up a new international task force on human trafficking, she said. Based out of Geneva, working with the United Nations. The table fell silent. This was an enormous honor recognition of everything Sarah had accomplished. But it was also a massive responsibility. What does that mean for us? Hope asked. It means we have a choice, Sarah said. We can stay here and continue the work we're doing, or we can take the work global. Help set up programs in dozens of countries, train thousands of people to do what we do. What do you want to do? Jack asked. Sarah looked around the table at her family, the husband who'd saved her, the children who'd given her purpose, the brother who'd found redemption. I want to do whatever we decide to do. Together. Together, Hope said firmly. That's how we do everything. Then let's talk about it, Jack said. All of us. What do we think? The conversation lasted well into the night. They talked about the opportunities, the challenges, the impact they could have on a global scale. They talked about what they'd be leaving behind and what they'd be moving toward. In the end, it was Daniel who voiced what they were all thinking. Mom helped over 1,000 people from here, he said. How many could she help from there? A lot more, Sarah admitted. Then we should go, Daniel said simply. We should help as many people as we can. Even if it means leaving Colorado. Leaving our friends, our life here. Our life is helping people, Hope said. It doesn't matter where we do it. Danny nodded his agreement. The foundation here is strong enough to run itself, and Elena and I can oversee the American operations while you're in Geneva. Are you sure? Sarah asked. This isn't just my decision to make. It's our decision, Jack said, and I think we've made it. 6 months later, the Coltrane family stood in the Geneva airport, surrounded by their luggage and their dreams. The move had been challenging: new country, new language, new culture. But they'd faced it together as they faced everything. Sarah's new office overlooked Lake Geneva, with the Alps visible in the distance. The United Nations building was a symbol of global cooperation, of the world's commitment to fighting injustice. Sarah would be working with delegates from 50 countries, coordinating efforts to combat trafficking on every continent. Hope enrolled in an international school where she met other children from around the world. Many of them had stories of their own: refugee children, children of diplomats, children who'd seen both the best and worst of humanity. Daniel adapted with the resilience of youth, quickly learning French and making friends with children from dozens of countries. He started a club at school focused on human rights, drawing on his family's experiences to educate his peers about trafficking. Jack found work with Interpol, his law enforcement background and experience with trafficking cases, making him a valuable asset to international investigations. He helped coordinate raids across multiple countries, ensuring that survivors received proper support and that traffickers faced justice. The work was harder than it had been in Colorado, more complex, more political, more frustrating. But it was also more impactful. Every program they helped establish, every law they helped pass, every protocol they helped develop would potentially save thousands of lives. Are you happy? Sarah asked one evening as they walked along Lake Geneva, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of gold. I'm proud, Jack said. I'm proud of what we've built, what we're building. Are you happy? I'm fulfilled, Sarah said. I'm doing the work I was meant to do with the people I was meant to do it with. Even though it's harder here, especially because it's harder here, the impact is bigger, the reach is wider, the potential is greater. They walked in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the international city around them. Geneva was a place where the world came together to solve problems, to negotiate peace, to fight injustice. It was the perfect place for their family's mission. Do you think we'll ever retire? Jack asked. Sarah laughed. Do you want to retire? No, Jack admitted. I want to keep doing this until I can't anymore. This work, this family, this life, it's exactly what I was meant to do. Then we won't retire, Sarah said. We'll just keep evolving, keep growing, keep finding new ways to help. Together, together. As they walked home through the streets of Geneva, they passed other families, other couples, other children. Some were refugees seeking safety, others were diplomats working for peace. Still others were simply tourists enjoying the beauty of the city. But all of them were someone's hope. All of them were someone's reason to keep fighting, to keep believing, to keep working for a better world. Jack and Sarah understood this now in a way they never had before. They understood that their story, their love, their family, their work, was part of a much larger story. A story of human resilience, of the power of love, to overcome hatred, of the possibility of redemption, even in the darkest circumstances. "Do you think Hope will follow in our footsteps?" Sarah asked. "I think Hope will follow her own path," Jack said. "But I think that path will lead her to help others just like ours did. And Daniel will build things. Systems program solutions. He'll create the infrastructure that makes our work possible." "A family business," Sarah said with a smile. "A family mission," Jack corrected. "The business of making the world better." They'd reached their apartment building, a modern structure that housed diplomats and international workers from around the world. Their neighbors were from every continent, working on every imaginable cause: human rights, environmental protection, peace negotiations, economic development. "I love our life," Sarah said as they rode the elevator to their floor. "I love our life too," Jack replied. "All of it, even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. They're what make the good parts meaningful." Inside their apartment, Hope was helping Daniel with his homework, while talking on the phone with a friend from her old school in Colorado. The easy, multilingual chatter of international children filled the air: French, English, Spanish, German, all mixed together in the casual way of young people who'd grown up global. "How was your day?" Hope asked, switching to English as her parents entered. "Productive," Sarah said. "We got approval for 3 new programs in Southeast Asia." "That's amazing." Hope's enthusiasm was genuine. At 16, she already understood the significance of their work, the impact of each program, each policy, each life saved. "How was school?" Jack asked. "Good. We're doing a project on international law, and I'm writing about the Chen Wei Act. Mr. Rodriguez said it's one of the most important anti-trafficking laws ever passed." "It saved a lot of lives," Sarah said quietly. "It saved all of us," Hope corrected. "In a way." That night, as Jack and Sarah lay in bed, listening to the sounds of Geneva outside their window, when they reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that frozen morning in the Dakota Territory, to this cosmopolitan city in the heart of Europe, from 3 desperate people in a storm cellar, to a family working to change the world. "Do you think we'll ever be done?" Sarah asked. "Will there ever be a time when we can say we've done enough?" "I don't think so," Jack said. "I think this is our life's work, all of it. The rescuing, the healing, the building, the growing, and it's what we were meant to do. All of us, even the kids in their own way. Hope with her advocacy, Daniel with his building, Danny with his healing, Elena with her counseling. We're all part of the same mission." "A family of rescue workers," Sarah said. "A family of hope givers," Jack corrected. "That's what we are. We give hope to people who have none left. And we give each other hope too. Especially that." Sarah curled against Jack's side, feeling the steady beat of his heart. This man who'd found her dying on railroad tracks, who'd risked everything to save her, who'd helped her transform her pain into purpose. He was her rock, her anchor, her proof that love could conquer even the darkest evil. "I love you, Jack Coltrane," she whispered. "I love you too, Sarah Chen Coltrane." Outside, the world continued its eternal struggle between light and darkness, between hope and despair, between love and hatred. But inside their apartment, in their family, in their work, love was winning. Hope was spreading. And tomorrow they would get up and do it all again, because that's what families do. That's what love does. That's what hope does. It endures, it grows, it wins.